What's going on at heavyweight? Like, do you guys believe in conspiracy theories? And even if you're not a conspiracist, you agree that there are things that happen that sometimes are for reasons other than the headlines that are projecting them. Can we agree on that? Because that ultimately would be a conspiracy. It doesn't have to be an overly sophisticated or complex thing. It would just be something happening to get a derived consequence other than what is being stated. That would be it. And I admit I like them. I think it's fun. I asked Joe Rogan one time, I yelled it to him. From across the room. He was kind of new into podcasting. And I yelled to him, "Hey Joe, did we land on the moon?" And I just wanted a yes or no. And it really meant what's up. You know when somebody goes, "What's up?" And then you get the smart goes, "Oh, the sky and heaven above," or whatever the answer is. It just means hello. And when I yelled it to Joe, he took it very serious and he was being very nice to me. He was trying to answer my question, but he was from way across the way. He was talking to someone else. I interrupted it. "Joe, we were landing on the moon." He started answering the question. And I remember he said, "Well, that's complicated because," and he started in on it. And whatever came after that doesn't matter. The point is, I would have stood there and listened to him all day. No matter how rude or inconvenient it was, no matter that he was shouting across the hall, it was fun for me. It was fun for me to hear the different ideas that a conspiracy can take you and the different reasons as to why the conspiracy stayed alive. Do we have one right now at heavyweight? I mean, what is going on at heavyweight? Could you explain it to me? And my answer is no, you could not. Now, is the reason you couldn't explain it to me because something else is happening? That would be a conspiracy. Is something else happening on purpose? But I will just tell you, I have no explanation or era and period in time that I can point back to and grab and show you. Now, look, we've already done this once. What do we know about history, guys? It repeats itself. You're doing the same thing over and over. It's just a wheel. What part of that wheel are we on? What part of that wheel are we on? So I'm looking at heavyweight right now, and I can't seem to fully understand it. By example, I saw a couple of great headlines on Tom Aspinall. Now, I am a believer on Aspinall. Possibly not to the extent that Michael Bisping did within England, but at different times in Tom's career, I would be the highest thing outside of England not named Michael Bisping. In all fairness, I'm doing headlines and I'm talking about it and I'm telling you about this guy. In fact, I'm going to be his PR director. You want to talk to him, just start calling me. I did an interview. I had the Mac Life take me up on that. I did an entire interview as Tom. But I'm just sharing for you, I followed him pretty close, and I saw 2 headlines of him this week. I made videos on both of them. Both of them. One was that he gets up and he trains in hay bales, like the old gypsies, and he puts his hand in petroleum. Hardens his knuckles up. At least in theory, it's the way the story goes. Next one was that he's in this back and forth, and he's been in a back and forth for a period of time with Ciryl Gane. And they're both accusing the other one of ducking, and it's kind of an interesting story. And before I go down that road, or I go any further with either of the 2 headlines that I saw on Tom, one having to do with the gypsy-style training, see hay bales, see petroleum as examples, one having to do with who ducked who as it pertains to Ciryl Gane. Before I go any further with either of those, Tom is about to defend a world championship in home soil against Curtis Blades. Do you know that? Because I would find it to be a very big surprise that of the 2 Tom headlines that I've seen, to the point that not only did I see him, I recognize him. I then came and made pieces about the pieces. I haven't seen one having to do with Tom taking on Ciryl. Apologize. Curtis, why? Why aren't I seeing that? Why is that not being covered? Why is the story about Tom have something to do with other than Curtis? And I dug into that one time. People had told me, I said, "Hey, I don't get what's going on with Curtis. Everybody likes him. He seems to be such a nice guy." By everybody, I mean the fellow boys. Everyone seems to like him. He's got good management. He's a good-looking guy. He's tall. He's got the right body. He's got the resume. This guy was a collegiate national champion. This guy listens to you, the audience. He changes his style. When you start to say that he's dull and boring, he starts standing up. He starts kicking more. Even if he does those before he goes into the takedown, he's listening to you, the audience. What is it that you don't like about Curtis? And you want to know, I finally was given an answer by somebody. Whether this is accurate or not, what I was told was, Curtis Blades doesn't do a lot of interviews because he stutters and he doesn't like the sound of his voice. He doesn't like it when he gets jammed up on something and stutters it, and therefore he doesn't do a lot of interviews. But that was then supposed to explain why he didn't have him, why he didn't get the media, why he couldn't get to the top of the bill. And I'm looking around going, okay, I actually appreciate that. I wish that he'd tell that story. Because now you're talking about a heavyweight champion. You're talking about maybe the baddest dude in the world that has an insecurity. Like, that's actually a really helpful story, but if it brings him an embarrassment and he chooses to not tell it, fine. It continues to bring me back to the same place that I began, which is what is going on at heavyweight. Why would we not be telling the story? If Curtis is one win away from being the face of that division, whether you want to accept that or not, you know, the champion, the active champion, and the interim champion. If he's one fight away, it would seem like, what do we do then? Do we go right back to Tom? Does it create an opportunity for? And you start moving it around. You start moving around, you start having some fun. If you're Surreal gone, you're not doing interviews and you're just saying that Tom's scared. You're going to sprinkle a little bit on Curtis too, just to make sure that your bases are covered. If people think that that Curtis has a way to go, guys like Francis Ngannou, who aren't even in the organization before, but have a past with Curtis, make sure to get their own name in there. We don't see anything like that. I'm staring at the heavyweight division. We're waiting on one guy that's only fought at heavyweight once. We're waiting on the other guy who hadn't fought in the division in 4 years. And as I continue to look at the division, we don't have, for the first time in UFC history, the sport of wrestling is not represented. Now, by representation, that would be a Division I All-American or greater. Whether it was a champion, a world, bronze, silver, gold, an Olympic, bronze, silver, gold. So many different ways that you could do it. So many different ways you could meet a fairly low bar that I'm talking about, which is an NCAA All-American. That's it. And NCAA, that being the starting point, and then you work your way up. For the first time in UFC history, we do not have that within the heavyweight division. How come? What is going on at heavyweight? Why am I seeing headlines on Tom Aspinall that I personally find interesting? I don't know if you soak your hand in Vaseline if it helps. I don't know. But the World Heavyweight Champion says it does. That's interesting to me. Why do we have this back and forth with Surreal? Like, when Tom tried to fight Surreal and Surreal dropped the ball, it wasn't actually Surreal ducking him. It was Surreal being so stupid. And there's no other way to say it. That was such a stupid moment for Surreal that then, when the ball got put in the other court, which was Tom's court, he was so irritated by the stupidity of Surreal that did come off as very rude, that he chose to do it back to him. I support that. I'm for the whole thing. The whole thing. And Tom is right in this situation. Tom had done everything right, and Surreal is the one that ruined that moment. When Surreal was able to look at what he had done and the effects of it, he tried to run it back. He did everything in the world you could do, except for to tell him sorry. To come out and say, that was my chance. I see what you built. It was in this moment. I blew it. If he would have called it out and admitted it, we'd all be square. But now we're not. Now we're having this game of back and forth, which quite frankly only worked the one time that Tom said, I'm not going to do it. You can't pull that same serve twice. So Surreal and Tom is a match that's, nothing will get in the way of that happening. If the time is right and it presents itself again, you won't have the pettiness of the back and forth. You get that once, and we already did it once. But to have no discussion of Curtis Blades, to have nobody out there calling out Curtis, to have nobody out there that's beaten Curtis and wants to make sure that the world has that information before they're going into this fight. Is there a conspiracy? Is there just ineptness? Is there not a single heavyweight that's been a Division I All-American or greater? Like, that's not that high of a bar. not a single one of them is under contract anywhere. Are they being talked to? Are they being discussed? Do they have an upcoming tryout for the Ultimate Fighter? Do they have an upcoming match coming up on the Contender Series? Are they just not as good as they used to be? Are they just not as tough as they used to be? Are they just not as interested as they used to be? Is there any reason for that? Because it does seem like, from multiple headlines, not discussing the guy who's going to fight the champion, which is Curtis, and not having anyone on the roster that meets your minimum form that we proved back in 1993 through Dan Severn to be very effective. I don't know for sure that you have a conspiracy. Sometimes you just have strange things that happen, but can we agree that right now within heavyweight is a very unusual time?